Hi. Well, we're about to wrap up our discussion of cross-cultural American literature for the semester. And as we round out our study, I want to highlight a few more things that you can pay attention to in this week's texts. So for this week, we're reading part 2 in 19 Varieties of Gazelle. We read the first half of this book toward the beginning of the semester and saw Nye addressing many of the themes that are common to cross-cultural American writers. Some of the elements, some of the things that I really want you to look for as you read the poems in the second half of the book include the following themes. One, for example, is Nye's desire for peace. She does not claim to represent any large group, but she is trying to voice the strong desire among many people in the world for peace, particularly those who live in the Middle East. She is a voice for that strong desire. She's also very concerned about promoting the value of diversity. She wants her readers to understand that differences are beautiful things, and even though they can create friction and tension in our communities and in our daily lives, she wants her readers to recognize that the things that make us different make us beautiful, and the things that make us distinctly unique and perhaps different in our religious practices, in our family's customs, in our personal histories, are those things that make us interesting. She's also very interested in the role of language and of song. Her poems are very musical. There's a lot of internal rhyming, lovely sound patterns that reflects the musicality of both the English language and the Palestinian language, and the ways that people speak to one another in families and in communities in Palestine. She also really believes that that language and song are things that are essential to humanity. She has a great deal of reverence for both the power and the limits of language to express those things that are most deeply human. And of course, we see continued attention to the importance of food in daily rituals and in life. Food is important to our health. It's also important in our intimacies with other people. It's an important way that we can communicate hospitality and care for one another. And food is connected very deeply to cultural customs. The things we eat result from the things that we can grow where we live. So food is also a reflection of climate and geography. And in these poems, she's really trying to highlight that. In these poems, across the whole book, but I think you'll definitely see this in the second half, there's an ongoing interplay between the abstract and the concrete. We see the abstract reflected in some of the concepts that she's really wrestling with. So this might be things such as a loyalty, patriotism, tenderness, compassion, strength, honor, integrity, all of those kinds of things. And of course, the concrete is clear in the precise and sensory way that she presents the people, the landscapes, and the activities of the people whose lives she's trying to depict in these poems. She is a master of portraiture. She gives us these beautiful vignettes that are riveting and detailed that help us to see clearly not a generic, stereotypical version of an entire population, but instead individual people. We encounter specific faces who live in real places in the world, and she wants us to encounter them the way we would individuals we might bump into in a park or encounter on a sidewalk in our own neighborhoods. All of her poems have a strong focus. I mean, each individual poem has its own focus, And this focus is very clearly connected to these larger themes. But the poems stand alone. You could encounter any one of them and not need the framing of the others in order to experience something instructive and evocative. And then finally, you might think of these poems not as a journey. You know, the poems are not organized chronologically. It's not taking us on a specific quest or journey. Rather, it's offering up for us a kind of banquet or a bouquet of images and phrases and ideas. Okay, the other book that I've asked you to go back into for this last week of the semester is Kingston's The Woman Warrior. We read the first essay in this book at the beginning of the semester. Now we're going to read the second one, White Tigers. And some of the things that I really want you to think about as you are reading this essay are these themes. One is the significance of cultural myths. We spent some time when we were reading and discussing Housemaid of Dawn considering the importance of archetypes. We recognized how valuable it was to us as readers to think about the prominence of archetypal figures and images and narratives in this novel that we were reading. Well, that same approach can be very helpful as we're reading White Tigers. This particular essay really highlights the importance and the strength of the old world stories that are so frequently passed from the elders in a community down to the younger members of that society. The challenge for cross-cultural American writers is that they have to find a way to reconcile the authority and the power of these old world myths and stories with the experiences, the identity that they're forming as a result of mainstream American culture and the narratives and the values and the ideas that are valued in American culture. Another important theme in this that I think this essay reveals is the authority of elders. We saw that in No Name Woman, how the elders in the community have the power to determine what is right, what is wrong, what will be punished, what will be forgiven, or what can never be forgiven. And in this essay, that old world story demonstrates the power, the influence, the significance of elders in the lives of young adults and children. Another important theme that she really grapples in this essay is gender roles. In the first half of the essay, she retells this old world story that has been passed down to her, the story of a young woman warrior who is trained and mentored and ultimately goes to battle for her community. And then the second half of the essay really meditates on what it means to be a woman in the old world, what it means to be a daughter in her own specific family, and what it means to be female in mainstream American culture. And so we see the old world in conflict with the new world, Chinese culture in conflict with American culture, and all of that is calling her to really meditate on and question gender roles that are assigned to both men and women by tradition. And then finally, a fourth theme that I'd really like you to think about as you read this essay is forces that influence female identity formation. As you read that old world story that she shares in the first half of the essay, think about what are all of those things that determine what it means to be female, what it means to have value in society if you are female. What are the sources of female power or influence or beauty? And then as you read the second half of the essay, where she's really thinking about the consequences of her presence in American culture, what are those forces that seem to be shaping her own sense of what it means to be a good girl versus a bad girl, or a woman that is strong and beautiful and of value? From where does female identity and value arise. So those are the things to pay attention to as you read these. You can, I would encourage you to make some notes prior to our class session on Wednesday so that we can have a robust discussion of these topics as they are present in these last two texts.